Sí, ya.
All right, we have our clearance lights. 3 in the middle, 2 on the outer. Amber in color, clean and functional. We have our alternating flashing lights. We have amber on the inside, red on the outside, clean and functional. We have our windshield. It is free of any cracks, any damage, any debris, no obstructions. Then we have our windshield wipers. They're securely mounted, no loose feelings, and they're clean. We're gonna now go to our flattened convex mirror. They're securely mounted to the bracket. They're clean, no loose and missing parts. Then we have our crossover mirror, securely mounted, no loose and missing parts, and it's clean. Then we have our flattened convex mirror. They're securely mounted to the bracket, no loose or missing parts, and it's clean. We have our crossover mirror. They're securely mounted to the bus, no loose or missing parts, and it's clean. From there, we're going to stand back, and we're going to do our lights. We have our side markers, amber in color, clean and functional. We have our turn signals, amber in color, clean and functional. We have our headlights, high and low beam, white in color, clean and functional. Then we have underneath the bus. Underneath the bus, there's no leaks, there's no obstructions, no debris, and the bus is not leaning to the left or the right. So at this time, we're going to release the latches, which I should have did already, but I'll get them now. And we're going to raise the hood. Once the hood is raised, we're going to go to our oil and transmission dipsticks. I'm going to tell the examiner that I'm going to pull the dipstick out. I'm going to clean the dipstick off. Once it's cleaned off, I'm going to reinsert the dipstick and pull it back out. All is within operating range. I'm going to then go to my transmission dipstick. Pull it out. Wipe it off. Reinsert it. Check the level within operating range. To check the transmission dipstick, the engine must be on. From there, we're going to go to our coolant tank. They're securely mounted, no loose or missing parts. The cap is secure. The hoses are tight and secure, no leaks. Then we're going to go to our air compressor. It's securely mounted, not leaking. Then from there, we're going to go to our power steering reservoir. I'm going to open up the reservoir top. I'm going to clean off this, reinsert, check it within operating range. Then I'm going to check my power steering hoses. Then I'm going to let them know that the power steering hoses are securely mounted, not leaking. Then I'm going to go to the power steering gearbox, securely mounted, not leaking. Then I'm going to go to my pitman arm, my drag link, and my tie rod. They're securely mounted, no loose or missing parts, not cracked or damaged. Then from there, I'm going to take it over to the suspension group. I'm going to go to the frame. The frame is securely mounted. It goes the length of the bus. It's not cracked, not damaged. And it does not have any illegal welds. I'm going to then go to my shock absorber, securely mounted, not leaking. I'm going to go to my front and rear mounts and hangers. They're securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. From there, I'm going to go to my leaf springs. My leaf springs are securely mounted. They're not cracked, not damaged, not shifted, not missing. I go now to my U-bolts and bushings. I make sure that they're securely mounted, that they're not cracked or damaged. From there, I go to my axle. My axle is securely mounted. It's not bent, not cracked, not damaged, and no illegal welds. From there, I'm going to then go into the braking group. So I'm now going to look at my brake line, my hose, and my coupling. They're securely mounted, not leaking. I'm going to then go to my brake chamber. And make sure that my brake chamber is securely mounted, and that it's not leaking and it's not cracked or damaged. From there, I'm going to go to my slack adjuster and my push rod, which are here. My slack adjuster and my push rod are securely mounted. No loose or missing parts. My cutter keys are in place. To test the slack adjuster and push rod, I'm going to torque the wheels. And with the parking brake released, if I pull on the push rod, it should not move no more than 1 inch. From there, I'm going to then go to my brake drum. My brake drum is securely mounted, not cracked or damaged, not missing. Then from there, I'm going to go to my brake linings or brake shoes. They are not cracked, damaged, and not worn excessively thin. From there, we're going to go to the tire. The tire sidewalls are securely mounted. Not securely mounted. My tire sidewalls are not cracked, not damaged. Now, no bulges and no signs of damage. Gonna look at my tire tread, making sure that it's evenly worn and the tread depth is no less than 432. Then from there, we're going out here. We're gonna go to the rim. The rim is securely mounted. It's got no bends, no cracks, no damage, and no illegal welds. Then we're gonna go to the lug nuts. The lug nuts are securely mounted. None are missing. They are all intact. They're not distorted. There are no rust trails and no shiny threads indicating looseness. From there, we're going to then go to our hub oil axle seal. Our hub oil axle seal is securely mounted and it's not leaking. Then we're going to look at our valve stem, making sure our valve stem is securely mounted, that it's not leaking, it's properly capped, and when checked with a gauge, it should read between 90 to 120 PSI. And from here, we're going to go to the other side of the bus. Now, once on the other side of the bus, the instructor may instruct you that you only have to talk about the items that are different from the other side of the bus. If this is the case, that means you do not have to explain none of the suspension components here, only the engine components. All these components on this side of the bus are belt driven. You have your AC compressor, you have your alternator, and you have your water pump. They're securely mounted. There are no loose or missing parts, and that the water pump is not leaking. They're driven by the serpentine belt. The serpentine belt is securely mounted. It is not cracked, not damaged, not frayed, and if I push on it, it should not move no more than 3/4 of an inch. Once we check the belt and the serpentine belt is in good shape, we're going to then check our upper and our lower radiator hoses. We're going to make sure that they're securely mounted and that they are not leaking. Once we do that portion of the engine, that is it. We're going to then close the hood, latch it, and continue on our pre-trip. Once we finish that section of the bus, we're going to come on this side and we're going to do the top of the bus. And we're going to work our way down. So the first thing we're going to call out at the top, we're going to talk about our clearance lights. Our clearance lights are amber in the front, in the middle, red in the rear. Clean and functional. We got our emergency exits, they're properly labeled. We have reflective tape around them. It is clean and visible. Then we have our windows. We have our driver window. We have our passenger windows. They're not cracked, not damaged. There are no illegal stickers. From there, we're going to now go to our fuse panel. And we're going to open up the fuse panel. There's no cracked, frayed, damaged wires, no smells of burns, and our spare fuses are with the mechanic. From this door, we're going to go down into the battery door. We're going to say that the battery door is securely mounted and that it has no loose or missing parts. We're going to talk about the batteries, that they're securely mounted, no loose or missing parts, all connections are tight, and there are no signs of corrosion. We're then going to go here to our stop arm. We're going to open up the stop arm and we're going to show them that it's securely mounted to the frame of the bus. It has 4 red lights, clean and functional. From there, we're gonna stand back from the bus and we're gonna look at our turn signal. The amber in color, clean and functional. We now have our reflectors. We have our amber in the front, red in the rear, clean and functional. From there, we're gonna go underneath the bus. Underneath the bus, we have our frame. Our frame runs the length of the bus. It's securely mounted. It's not cracked, not damaged, not bent, and there's no illegal welds. We're gonna then, let's take that back. Not the frame. We're gonna go to the drive shaft. Drive shaft first. We're gonna look at the drive shaft. It's securely mounted, no loose or missing parts, and that all the couplings are intact. We're gonna then go to our exhaust. The exhaust is securely mounted. It's not leaking. There's no signs of soot, and there's no signs of carbon indicating a leak. We're gonna then go to the frame that runs the length of the bus. With the frame, we're gonna look for cracks. We're gonna look for damage, and we're gonna make sure that it has no illegal welds and that it's securely mounted to the body of the bus. From there, we're gonna now go into our suspension group. We're gonna talk about the shock absorber, which is in the rear. The shock absorber is securely mounted and it's not leaking. Now we're gonna talk about our front and rear mounts and hangers, and we're gonna say that they're securely mounted, they're not cracked or damaged. We're gonna then go to our leaf springs and our torque rod. We're gonna make sure that they're securely mounted, they're not loose, not shifted, not cracked, not damaged, and not missing. Then from there, we're gonna go to behind the tire is our U-bolts and bushings. They're securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. Then we have our axle differential. It's securely mounted, not cracked, not damaged, not bent, and that it's not leaking because the rear differential holds liquid. From there, we're gonna now go into our braking group. Within our braking group, we have our brake line, we have our brake hose, and we have our brake coupling. They're securely mounted and they're not leaking. We have our brake chambers in the front of the tire. Our brake chambers, securely mounted, not cracked, not damaged, not leaking. Then we have our slack adjuster and push rod. They're securely mounted, they're not cracked, not damaged. The cotter pins are in place, and with the wheels chopped and the parking brake release, with the parking brake release, if I pull on the push rod, it should not move no more than 1 inch. Then from there, we're gonna now go into our brake drums, which are behind the tires. We have our brake drum. It is securely mounted, not cracked, not damaged, not warped, and there is no signs of oil or grease. Then we're gonna go to our brake lining or brake shoes. They're securely mounted and they're not worn excessively thin. Then we're gonna go to our tires. We have our tire sidewalls. Because we have dual tires, the tires are properly spaced. Then we're gonna look at the sidewall, making sure that the sidewall is not cracked, not damaged, not cut, and that it does not have any bulges. Then we're gonna look at the tire tread. The tire tread is evenly worn, and it should not be below a tread depth of 232. Then we're gonna go down to our rim. We have 2 rims because we have 2 tires. They're gonna be securely mounted. We're gonna make sure that they're not cracked, not damaged, that there's no illegal welds. We're gonna then go to our lug nuts, making sure our lug nuts are securely mounted, that they're not distorted, that there's no shiny threads, there's no rust trails indicating looseness, and that all lug nuts are present. Then we're gonna go to our hub oil axle seal. It's securely mounted and it's not leaking. Then we're gonna go to our valve stems because we have 2 tires. They're securely mounted, they're not leaking, and they're properly kept. With a tire gauge, if I was to check the air pressure, it should read between 90 to 120 PSI. And then that is it for the rear axle. And now we're gonna go to the rear of the bus. In the rear of the bus, we have our clearance lamps. We have 3 in the middle, and we have 2 on the outer. They're red in color, clean and functional. We have our alternating lights. We have amber on the inside, red on the outer, clean and functional. We have our turn signals, amber in color, clean and functional. We have our brake lights, top and bottom, each side, red in color, clean and functional. We have our reverse lights, white in color, clean and functional. We have our license plate light, white in color, clean and functional. We have our rear reflectors, clean and visible. Then we have our rear emergency door. It's properly labeled. When I open the door, it opens smoothly. When I check the hinges, they're securely mounted, no loose or missing parts. And when I check the seal, my seal is intact. And when I close the door, it latches properly. Last thing I'm going to check on the bus in the rear is going to be the exhaust pipe. That the exhaust pipe is free of any obstructions or debris. Then from here, if you are given the full bus, the instructor may tell you what is different from the left side of the bus, the driver's side of the bus, what is different on the right side of the bus. The only thing that's different on the right side of the bus is the fuel tank and your entry light. We're going to go to the fuel door. We're going to make sure that it's securely mounted, no loose or missing parts. We're going to make sure that the fuel tank is properly capped, that it's securely mounted, and that the lines are not leaking. Then we're going to go to our entry light, white in color, clean and functional. From here, we're going to then go inside of the bus. We're going to now perform the passenger items. On the test, this may be said, you may have a partial pre-trip. This part of the bus has to be done no matter what. We're going to come to the front door. We're going to make sure that the door opens and closes smoothly, that the seal is intact, that the glass is clean, and that it is not cracked or damaged, that the door is securely mounted to the hinges, no loose or missing parts. Then from there, we're going to go inside and we're going to look at our step treads. They're securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. We're going to then look at our handrails. Securely mounted, no loose or missing parts. We're going to then look at our step light. White in color, clean and functional. Once we get in the bus, we're going to talk about our first aid kit and our body fluid kit. They're securely mounted, not cracked or damaged. Then we're going to talk about our fire extinguisher, and we're going to talk about our reflectors.
Triangle.
Yeah, our reflective triangles. We're going to make sure that they're securely mounted and that all three are intact. With the fire extinguisher, we're going to make sure that it's securely mounted, that it's up to date, that it's in the proper operating range, and it's securely mounted. We're going to then check our student mirror, making sure that it's securely mounted, it's not cracked or damaged, and no illegal stickers. Then from here, we're going to take a seat and sit down in the bus. Once we sit down in the seat, we're going to talk about the seat and make sure that we say that the seat is securely mounted, that the seat has no loose or missing parts, and it's not cracked or damaged. Then we're going to talk about our seat belt, making sure that the seat belt is securely mounted, it fastens properly, and that the belt is not cracked, damaged, or frayed. And from here, we're going to now close the door and start our switches. We're going to turn the bus on, check our lights and make sure everything is working properly. Once the lights go off and the wait to start is removed, we'll start the bus. With the bus started, we're going to now go into our switches. Passenger AC, operating properly. Driver heater, operating properly. My mirrors are adjusted properly to me. Rear heaters, operating properly. Driver AC, operating properly. Defrost fan, operating properly. Boost pump, operating properly. Driver and passenger dome lights, white in color, clean and functional. Now we're gonna go into our master switch. Master switch operating properly. Our flashing lights. I can see my flashing lights in my crossover. I can see it on my dash, and I can see it on my driver panel. Operating properly. I'm gonna now slightly open the door. When I slightly open the door, I can see reds in my crossovers. I can see the stop arm extended in my flat and my convex. I can now see the red flasher on the dash and on my driver panel, operating properly. I'm gonna now turn on my red override. With my red override on, my arm is extended. I can see the lights flashing in my flat and my convex and in my crossover mirror. And I can see it on my dash, and I can see it on my driver panel, operating properly. Then I'm gonna go to my no noise. It turns off the radio, it is operating properly. At this point, I'm gonna now get ready to start checking my lights. So I'm gonna check my wipers. Wipers operate properly, and the washer is operating properly. I'm gonna now check my left turn signal. I can see it in my crossover. I can see it in my flat and convex, operating properly. I'm gonna turn on my right turn signal. I can see it in my crossover. I can see it in my flat and my convex, operating properly. I'm now gonna check my high and low beam. I can see it in my crossover, operating properly. I'm gonna now turn on my hazards. I can see it in my flat, my convex. I can see it in my crossovers, operating properly. At this time, I'm gonna now check the horn, operating properly. I'm gonna then go into my gauges. I'm gonna check my transmission gauge. My transmission gauge is operating between 140 to 200, operating properly. My water is between 170 to 200, operating properly. My oil pressure is between 20 to 40 at idle, operating properly, and 40 to 60 when I'm driving. RPMs are registered, operating properly. Miles per hour, operating properly. At the voltage, on my voltage gauge, it is operating between 14 to 16 volts, operating properly. My fuel is at an adequate level, and my air pressure on my primary and my secondary brake air is no less than 120 psi, so it is operating properly. At this time, I'm going to check my gear selector. I'm going to take it through the range of the gears, and it's operating properly. At this time, I'm going to now turn the key to the left. When I turn the key to the left, I'm going to take off my seatbelt. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to check my seats. I'm going to check my seats and my seatbelt, making sure that they're securely mounted to the bus. All seatbelts are intact. All the way to the rear of the bus. And then we're going to turn off the No Child Left Behind. And we're going to talk about the emergency door. That we hear the emergency buzzer and it's operating properly. So at this time now we're going to check our emergency equipment. We're going to come up to the upper hatch, the roof hatch, and we're going to put the hatch to use this emergency hatch. We're going to turn this knob to exit. Push out, and this will open, and the alarm will sound. To check the windows, we're going to lift this latch and push out on the window. It's operating properly. I can hear the buzzer. At this time, you can ask the examiner if they want you to open or close, and the emergency window is properly labeled. At this time, you're going to ask them, do they want you to open up any other emergency exit? If they say no, you are now going to go take a seat, and we're going to start the air brake test. So at this time, I'm going to now get back in the seat. I'm going to make sure I put on my seatbelt and buckle it in. Okay, and I'm going to take this key, and I'm going to take the key from the left position and turn it to the right. I'm going to acknowledge the ABS light because this is the only chance I have to see it. ABS light is operating properly. I'm going to then look at my primary and secondary gauges for my brake air. They're both reading at least 120 psi. So I can now start my leak down test. The first part of this test is we're gonna release the parking brake, and we're gonna test the air in the system, and we're gonna check the system for leaks. So I'm gonna push this in to release the parking brake. As I release the parking brake, the needles will fall. When the needles stop moving, I'm going to then count 1 minute. In 1 minute, I cannot lose no more than 2 psi. And so we're going to now count 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute has passed. After 1 minute has passed, I'm gonna then take my foot. I'm gonna then apply it to the service brake. When I apply the brake, the needles are gonna fall. When the needles stop falling, I'm gonna then count 1 minute. In 1 minute, I cannot lose no more than 3 psi. Okay, 1 minute has passed. Now we're gonna check for the air brake warning light and the air brake buzzer. While standing on the brakes around 60 psi, you will get the brake warning and the brake warning light. Around 20 to 40 psi, the parking brake will pop out. And now we got the pop out. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on the engine. I'm gonna now get out of the seat, and I'm gonna go and remove that chalk. Make sure that you turn the wheel to the left and to the right. Place my chops on the steps. And now we're going to do the second part of the air brake test. I'm going to buckle up my seatbelt, and then we're going to raise up. Going to raise up our RPMs to around 1,500 RPM, and we're going to build air pressure. Around 60 psi, the brake warning and the brake light will go off, and we'll continue to build pressure. At 120 to 125 psi, we're going to then receive the governor cutout, which is the psst sound. And when we receive the governor cutout, we can begin the next portion of the test. Next portion of the test that we're going to do, we're going to remove our feet from the pedals. We're going to put the bus in drive, and then once the bus is in drive, we're going to then apply the accelerator and raise the RPMs to 1,500. The bus should not move. That means the parking brake is operating properly. The next portion of the test, we're going to bring the bus up to 5 miles an hour, and then we're going to make sure that the bus is properly moved with the service brake. So now we're gonna bring the bus out. And we're gonna raise our speed to 5 miles an hour. And we're gonna make a smooth stop. The bus did not move to the left or to the right. The service brake is operating properly. We're gonna pop the brake and then neutral. Then we're gonna tell them this concludes my air brake test. Wait one moment and then you're gonna say that this concludes my pre-trip. And that is it. And you can stop it. How many minutes was that?